I think it's about time we move on to the next topic. And this topic I'm looking forward to because it's the Super Bowl, man. It's the biggest game in America. It's the biggest game in the world. The world shuts down on Super Bowl Sunday. You got a whole bunch of casuals that never watch football a day in their life. But come to Super Bowl Sunday, they are locked in. Whether it's for the game, whether it's for the halftime show, the theatrics, everything. It's a very sacred day in America. And let's get right to it right now. So the question is as follows. Will Kansas City or the Philadelphia Eagles win the Lombardi Trophy on Sunday? And Zach, I'll pass it to you to kick us off first.
Yeah, well, I agree 100%, man. There's nothing like the Super Bowl each and every year. It just never gets old to me. And especially this year, like, I'm really looking forward to this game. These are two elite teams. And I think there are so many different angles you could go into with this game. But I'll start off by saying this, right? When I'm comparing these two rosters, 1 to 53, I think the Eagles are better. They are loaded at just about every position on the football field, and they have such a great balance. And the one thing that Philadelphia has done and they've used to their advantage all year is the trenches, one of the most important stages and places that you need to succeed if you want to win football games. And the Eagles, they are elite in the trenches. They have a great offensive line. Their defensive line knocked Brock Purdy out of that NFC Championship game, which was a big reason why they ended up coming away with the victory. But there are a few questions I have about the Eagles, and I'm curious what you think about this as well. And you don't have to answer this right now, but I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm curious for your thoughts on this. And when you start your lap, you could answer it. But who is the best quarterback the Eagles have played or beaten this season? And I know that's by no means their own fault. Like, they don't make their schedule. It's not their issue that, what quarterbacks and what teams they face. But the answer to me would be like Dak Prescott or Kirk Cousins or Jared Goff, like probably one of those three guys. And when you look at this Philadelphia Eagle team, as good as their defense is, and there's no doubt their defense is really good, and them knocking and getting to Brock Purdy, knocking him out of the game was a big reason why they were able to advance in the NFC Championship game. But I just want to see this defense play an elite quarterback like Patrick Mahomes. And the other thing I will say is this, like, this again is by no fault of their own, but like the NFC was a poverty conference. It was trash compared to what it usually is. And when you look at this Eagles team, they deserve to be here. They've probably been the best team in the NFL from start to finish. But I look at their road to the Super Bowl to get here, and they blew out the Giants. The Giants were never winning that game. They looked shook from the beginning. And last week against San Francisco, Brock Purdy gets knocked out of the game. And the other thing I'll say about Jalen Hurts, and he is a great player. I would have voted for him for MVP. I did in our not 1999 anymore pod votes for all the awards. I did give him my vote, and he's had a great season. But I am not sure, and I think this is one of the more underrated storylines that going into this game, not a lot of people are talking about, right? Everyone's talking about Patrick Mahomes' ankle, and if he's going to be, he won't be 100%, but if that's going to limit him in any way. But I cannot confidently say that Jalen Hurts is the same quarterback right now that I saw week 5, week 6, before each of the last few playoff games. He has openly told reporters, like, yeah, I'm not 100%. But the Eagles haven't really had to worry about it because in neither of their 2 playoff games have they really had like legit threats to lose, and the Eagles running game is great. Their offensive line, there's a good chance they just mop up Kansas City. They could run the ball effectively right down their throat, and they come away with the victory. But when I look at all of these factors, the concern with Hurts' shoulder, the fact that I just want to see the Eagles and their defense go up and play against a really good quarterback. Like, there's no doubt the Eagles' defense is really good, but I don't know if they're going to be able to limit this Kansas City offense. And when it comes to the Super Bowl, like, these big games, they're so close. There isn't a lot of margin for error. And even though I think the Eagles have the better roster, even though I think 1 to 53, they're better, they have the advantage in the trenches, I just have a hard time betting against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in a game like this. This is going to be their third Super Bowl together, 1-1 in those 2 games. And there are some concerns I have from the Kansas City perspective as well. Mahomes' ankle is one of them. We don't know what the deal is exactly with their wide receivers. It's looking like Hardman is not going to play. Kadarius Toney, it's looking like he is going to play, but still questionable. Juju, he's going to be questionable. Also, their top corner, L'Jarius Sneed, he's going to be questionable. And if he doesn't play, it's mostly rookies playing corner for the Chiefs secondary, which is concerning, but they did their best against Cincinnati. They were really able to limit Burrow. And I think the one matchup for me that I'm looking at in this game that could determine it is the Chiefs pass rush against the Eagles offensive line, because the Eagles offensive line has been probably their top strength this season. And when you look at Kansas City, I think their defense is a little bit better than people give it credit for. And that was shown in the AFC title game against the Bengals. The neutralizer for Kansas City and the injury issues in the secondary was their pass rush, and Chris Jones, Frank Clark. They were really able to get to Joe Burrow. They were really able to wreck that game. And I think that's what might be, could be what this game could come down to. Philadelphia also has some injury concerns on the offensive line as well. Landon Dickerson, he left the NFC Championship game early. Lane Johnson is playing through some things right now. So I think it's interesting that a lot of components of this game, like both teams have some concerns, but I've learned too many times, like when it's a close game, a close spot, like I think it's going to be, I'm not in the business of betting against Reed and Mahomes. I think the Chiefs get it done.
I mean, look, to answer that question that you threw my way earlier in your take, I would say that you can make the case Jared Goff based on how high
They
octane the
gave up
Lions
35
offense was.
points to him in that game, right?
And they scored 35 points in that loss. So their offense was high octane. I would say Jared Goff, not mainly because I'll take him over Dak. That's a seesaw for me. I'm not a Dak guy at all. Dak did perform good, but Hurts wasn't there. I'm talking about the second game that they played. Hurts, it was Minshew that was playing. So we talk about a full health Eagles team. The best quarterback they played, it was Jared Goff to me, even over Kirk Cousins, because Kirk Cousins didn't play good in that meeting. So I'll go Jared Goff. And that's week 1. And that's literally the opener. So there is some smoke. I won't even say smoke, but truth to what you were saying about how for real is this Eagles team, even though they're all in the Super Bowl. I have questioned it. I have questioned their resume. And yes, you beat who they put in front of you, the schedule makers, and that's all you can control. But now that you're in the Super Bowl against steeper competition, we're going to find out about not only the Eagles, but Jalen Hurts. I mean, I wasn't impressed last week. He didn't have a good game. And if they lost that game, we would be coming on the show singing a whole different tune about Jalen Hurts and how he is in big games, dating back to his college days, right? So I think for me, the most important person on the field is Jalen Hurts. And I'm going to get to that side of the bracket in a minute. I do want to talk about the Chiefs here, though, because the thing about the Chiefs and what makes them a dangerous team and why they in this game right now is they don't have that much talent. I don't even consider them a talented team. When you take away Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey, top to bottom, they're not talented to me. I mean, Chris Jones, you take away him, they're not talented to me. They're young and they're experienced, to some capacity, depending on what side of the ball you're looking at here. But they have a lot of young guys on that team. I would say they make up for all that with the creativity of the play calling and the patience of Mahomes. Those two things makes up a lot of ground here. And that's how they've been getting by. Like when you talk about it, they use a lot of motion, right? Which throws off the linebackers, which allows you to kind of like switch the last second and throw off the defense. So you talk about that and how, as a defense, you really have to be patient with that offense. And Patrick Mahomes, he doesn't take sacks. So it's not like you're behind the chains. You're like 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4, 3rd and 2. And they virtually impossible to stop because Kelsey knows how to find the open spots and get open. He knows how to use his leverage and mind and size to get open for 2 yards. So they're virtually impossible to stop in short situations. And the fact that Mahomes don't take those sacks allows him to sustain drives. So the Eagles are going to have their work done. I know they're the best defense in the entire league, or argue the 49ers, but the Eagles won that matchup last week. But they're going to have their hands full. On the flip side, when you talk about the Eagles' perspective and what they bring to the table, the Chiefs' defense is going to have their work cut out for them as well. They're young in the secondary. And the strength of this defense is the defensive line. Yes, they got to Joe Burrow last week because their offensive line was in shambles. They had, I believe it was 3 to 4 sacks on like the first 8 to 9 plays. I know I'm just freestyling, but it was something to that. It was a crazy stat. Like half of the first couple plays, the first 10 plays were sacks. Like you're gonna win the game most of the time, and then you kind of in the referee thing. I'm not trying to get in the referee thing here because it's a Super Bowl, and I'm hoping that the referees don't decide it on either side because that's going to be another crapshoot. And I told you already, if I see something like that happening, I'm turning this joint off and I'm watching something else. I'm checking out. But I say that to say that You're going up against the best offensive line in football. Yes, dealing with a couple injuries. They still have played together as a cohesive group. And if Chris Jones cannot get to the quarterback, then you're going to put an ample amount of pressure on that secondary because your offense is just so dynamic. You can rush the football. You can pass the football. You have Jalen Hurts mobility. You know how much pressure that is as a defender to, all right, is he going to run? Is he going to throw? Are they going to run the football? There's so much pressure. And we've seen it in that Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. If you test them, they will be highly aggressive and they're young. If the referee's calling it, they're going to throw flags. Those are going to be yardages. You can win the one-on-one battles. And that's where the mismatch is for me on that side. So I think I won't be shocked if any of the teams win. But if you're telling me, Leo, who are you going to pick? I'm going to pick the most talented team in the game. And I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game simply because the Chiefs' strengths, I think the Eagles can exploit that. I think they can get to Mahomes and cause trouble. And they don't have the best weaponry out there. They could hold Kelsey in check. And that's what it's going to come down to. Or you're going to hold Travis Kelsey in check because literally, you look at the Eagles against tight ends this whole entire season. The best tight end as far as the yardage was 69 yards in the season finale against the Giants. Okay, you talking about they went up against TJ Hawkinson. They held him to 4 catches for 38 yards. George Kittle, 3 catches. Obviously, a lot of variables into that. The quarterback situation, I understand. But if they can hold Travis Kelsey under 100 yards, take him out the game plan, they have the personnel to take him out the game plan and be able to focus on everything else and make plays. So that's why I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game 27-24. It's going to be another close game and a neutral site game that really is going to be impactful because, Zach, my last point, I send it back to you for the second lap. The Chiefs are a team that really has not had to deal or had not to deal with a lot of adversity. And I don't want you to take that out of context and making it seem like I think the Chiefs are having it easy. As I take a sip of this water, I'm explaining everything. They haven't had to go on the road to win a playoff game in the Andy Reid Mahomes era. And that's big. Having to go into somebody's house, not saying they can or can't do it, but that's different than winning in your backyard, winning the 2 games that you have to win to get in. That's a whole different feel than going on the road into Joe Burrow house, Josh Allen house, Tom Brady house to beat them there. Like it's totally different. So when you look at these neutral site games, you don't have the crowd and the advantage of the whistle because the home court, chances are you have the advantage of the whistle, especially being a star quarterback. This is a neutral site game. So I'm expecting the best team to win that neutral site game. And that's why I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because the Eagles won both their home playoff games as well. So a rare year where we have both of the number 1 seeds who only had to win 2 playoff games. And really, they took advantage of that bye to get in here. And I agree with you in the sense that I do think if the Chiefs could get pressure on Philadelphia, that could be what determines this game, that matchup between the Eagles offensive line and the Chiefs defensive line. Because with Jalen Hurts, like, I'm a huge fan, and there's no doubt he's an electric player, but I just don't know if he's the same guy right now that we saw the whole season. Like, I was always like a little confused with the way like the Eagles kind of, not how they handled it, but with the lack of information we were getting about Jalen Hurts. After that Bears game comes out, we think there's a chance he could have broke his collarbone, for God's sakes. Like, some people were saying that. Other people were saying he was totally fine, and he missed those 2 games against the Saints. And he's been back since that last Giant game, the last week of the season. But we haven't seen the same player since then. And when you look at Kansas City, they have their injury concerns. There's no doubt about that. When you look at Mahomes, it was super impressive what he was able to do in that Bengal game, playing on basically 1 leg. But I just think, man, like I said this at the beginning of the season, and I know the Chiefs might have not gone through a ton of adversity in terms of winning road playoff games, but I mean, they did lose Tyreek Hill. This team also was pretty that was an embarrassing showing. I'm not going to lie. In that second half of the AFC Championship game last year against the Bengals, they were shook. They had no answers. Even going back to that Buccaneers Super Bowl, that game was over from the start. The Chiefs never really had a chance in that game. And I said this at the beginning of the season when I chose Mahomes to win MVP. I made that prediction. I said there are just some guys that I think they're at their best when you doubt them, when no one thinks they have a chance. And I think Mahomes showed that in the Bengal game. No one knew if he was healthy. Everyone was on the Bengals, rightfully so, based on everything that Joe Burrow did the week before against Buffalo. But at the end of the day, Kansas City finds a way to win. And I just think it's crazy. Like, it's easy to say now because we're just so used to them winning. This is now, their third Super Bowl appearance in the last 4 years. They're going for their second Super Bowl ring in that span as well. Like, the Chiefs, they weren't really supposed to be here. Like, well, I hate to bring this up, but you picked them to miss the playoffs like a lot of other people did, and somehow they're still here. I just think there's certain guys that they're at their best when you bet against them. And when I look at the Eagles, they are honestly a team that I don't think they've gone through a ton of adversity. They've coasted through the whole season. They haven't played a great quarterback yet. That's not their fault, but it's the truth. They have suffered some injuries here as well. I think it's going to be a great game. Really looking forward to it, but I'm going to lean Kansas City.
I mean, you talk about doubting Mahomes. I don't really think anybody doubted Mahomes. Maybe, if you talk about top tier doubt, like, all right, you're not going to win MVP this year type of doubt. I mean, all right, cool. I mean, y'all still call me one of the best quarterbacks ever. So if you calling that doubt, then okay. But you talk about doubt, look no further than Jalen Hurts. This was a guy I had ranked 25 in my quarterback list coming into the year. And that was one of the worst, literally the worst picks that I've made, in the offseason. You talk about doubt. It was always Jalen Hurts doubt. There still is. Like, people, like me personally, I'm picking him to win this game because I think that Jalen Hurts is going to, have a great performance on the ground. Like, the Chiefs defense is not really set up. They blitz too much. And you have too many weapons, too many ways to win that I really feel scared about their secondary. Their secondary has played well based on what we projected into the year, being that young, but still going up against this Eagles team is a different type of animal. But there's a part of me that would not be shocked on Monday if I am going off on Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts is getting the smoke from Freddie because of his performance in a loss. So you talk about doubt. I think Jalen Hurts still trying to get the credit that he deserves, and this is a big game to do so. This is the biggest game of his life. You talk about the days of Alabama and transferring and not win the big game. You have a chance to rewrite that and beat Mahomes. That would literally put you on a different level as far as how we view you in the hierarchy quarterback position in the NFL. So there's a lot riding for Jalen Hurts. And you could say the same thing about Mahomes too, because if he loses daggone Super Bowl, we're going to be calling him the LeBron James of the NFL.
I'm curious also what you think of this. What do you think of Nick Sirianni in a big game? Do you trust him?
Yeah, I mean, because he won 2 big games. I understand it was the Giants and the 49ers had their issues, but he won the 2 games. Andy Reid, at one point, we was questioning Andy Reid's resume, even though I think he's a Hall of Famer, no doubt. I think he gets disrespected when you talk about this dynasty and his impact on the dynasty. I think it disrespected, but a lot of people was like, yo, he can't win until he got Mahomes. So Nick Sirianni is the same way. I think he's a good coach. I think he has that swag to him. He has that personality with him. If you can rile the troops up to win a game like this against a team like this in the Super Bowl, then we got to classify you as a good coach. Absolutely. We're going to see what happens in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure y'all going to enjoy it. I hope y'all do. I'm going to. I got no rooting interest. My team is not in there. I'm just going to sit back, relax, and watch the game and see my girl Rihanna perform. You know how that go.